Kevin, you got what you need from me, right? Make sure Alex knows what's going on. Don't start your meeting until I tell you because we have strategic planning. We're going to have a few minutes before I will let you know. It's not in the strategic plan. Is it Arabelle here? Is Arabelle here? Arabelle. Yeah, tell Arabelle. Just nobody told Arabelle. She'll be here in a minute. She's back in the corner. We gotta tell her. Just wait a second. We need her for the quorum. They messed this up. You're over there. You know what? We just put her over there. That's fine. Good morning.
Morning.
I would like to call to order the June 13th, 2018 meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Secretary, please call the roll.
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Here.
Chairman Irvine.
Here.
We have a quorum with all four members of the committee present.
Thank you. Our first order of business today is approval of the committee minutes of May 9th, 2018. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
1 second, please. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am? Would everybody just please speak up when you're speaking? It's a new core report today. Moved and seconded on the minutes, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Yes.
Chairman Irvine.
Yes.
The motion's approved with 4 yes votes.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance regarding bus route 205 Chicago Gulf, which is being replaced by Pace bus routes 208 Gulf Road and 213 Green Bay Road. And I've got Mike and Elsa. And before we start, Mike, last month at our meeting, I neglected a chance to congratulate you on being elevated as Chief Planning Officer. So I'm going to do so now. Well deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. With me is Elsa Gutierrez, Acting Vice President of Service Planning and Schedules. Before you today is an item which would authorize the replacement of CTA Bus Route 205 with service on Pace Routes 208 and 213. Pace and CTA conducted a joint study of transit service in the North Shore area over a 2-year study period. The intention was to improve service and reduce duplication of routes in this area. The process included local stakeholders and members of the public and had a very extensive presence on the web as well. The results of the first phase would make several changes to Pace services up in Highland Park and in Northbrook, which I will not highlight this morning, but the recommended result would replace CTA service on bus route 205 in Evanston with service on Pace routes 208 and 213. You can see in the map on the left the current CTA route 205 in blue or aqua color, and then the 2 Pace routes in orange and purple. In the map on the right, you can see the result of the Pace route changes. The Pace route 208 in orange will cover the Gulf Road corridor, and the Pace route 213 in purple will cover the Chicago Avenue corridor between Davis Station and Howard. There's a short dashed line in purple west from the Davis Station to directly serve Evanston High School with service off of the 213 route. At the public hearing held in April, almost all the comments were focused on service to Evanston Township High School. In response, CTA and the PACE staff returned to the data and developed a specific solution to maintain the service as requested by members of the public. The original proposal had only one school tripper for the high school in the morning and the afternoon, operated by PACE. The revised plan provides 6 trippers in the AM and 6 trippers in the PM rush, 5 by PACE and 1 by CTA in each of the rush periods. The revised plan was well received by the Evanston Village and school officials, and we have brought the results of that revised plan to you. The CTA trips will be supplemental trips on the Route 206, which follows the PACE Route 213 routing on Chicago Avenue. Staff recommends that the CTA Board consider adoption of the preferred ordinance here, which would authorize replacement of the CTA Bus Route 205 with PACE Bus Routes 208 and 213. The annual cost savings would be approximately $943,000, and I'll be glad to try to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No, I want to thank you both in your whole team for working with PACE and the community on modifying this plan and satisfying the concerns of the people, all the people that spoke up. So kudos to all of you. Thank you. If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
I'll second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Chairman Irvine.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 4 yes votes.
Thank you. And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Hold off, Terry. That meeting's over, so now we're going to go to the board meeting. Okay? Let me know when you're ready. Are you ready? We're ready, Terry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for June 13th. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Ms. Irvine.
Here.
Mr. Youngblood.
Here.
Mr. Silva.
Yeah.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Here.
Chairman Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum of the board with 6 members present.
Thanks, Greg. The first order of business today is a presentation from the chairman of the Citizens Advisory Board, Chairman Barclay.
We also have Vice Chairman Hall as well, so she can step.
Okay. Vice Chairman Hall, okay.
Good morning, Chairman Peterson,
Good
Transit
morning.
Board, and President Carter. I'm Lester Barclay, the chairman of the CTA's Advisory Board, and I'm here to report out to the Transit Board what the Advisory Board has been up to. On December 13, 2017, you appointed myself and 10 others to serve on the Citizens Advisory Board, which I am chairperson. Ms. Hall, sitting next to me, is our new vice chair. The purpose of the advisory board is to review CTA policies and programs from the perspectives of the riding public and to give feedback to the transit board from that perspective. We held our first meeting on March 14, 2018. One of our first orders of business is to educate the members of our advisory board about CTA and its business. Toward that end, at the first meeting, CTA staff gave our new board members an overall perspective of CTA from the system to how it is governed by the Transit Board, the RTA and its governing structure, and finally, the CTA's budget for 2018. That included a discussion of CTA's capital plan. This morning, we had our second meeting, and I asked for CTA staff to give us a presentation on system cleanliness, which is an issue that comes up from time to time, and it came up at our previous meeting. We received an overview from CTA staff on the procedures and protocols for cleaning rail cars, buses, stations, as well as an understanding of who is responsible for cleaning at the CTA. We also had an opportunity to discuss the Second Chance program, which is a great program and is very much recognized throughout the city as something that's innovative that the CTA is doing. I had the privilege of being at the Safer Foundation dinner where our president was honored that evening for the work that CTA is doing with the Second Chance program. So we say keep up the good work in that area. We look forward to providing regular feedback on policy and operational issues to the Transit Board, and I look forward to working with the board and management on important issues affecting CTA riders and overall ridership. Speaking on behalf of the Citizens Advisory Board, we look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, and with you, Mr. President, and your staff in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say on behalf of the board, Mr. Barclay and also Ms. Hall, I know we've got some other members. I saw Marlo Coven here. I saw Alicia. Is Alicia still here?
Alicia went back to work.
Alicia went back. Are any of the other advisory board members here? If you could you please stand and be recognized? All right, so we have three. Let me just thank you for your service. It's taken us a minute to get the advisory board together, but we're excited about your participation and look forward to getting your counsel and advice in terms of things that we can do better to service our riders. So again, thank you for your service. Appreciate you being here and look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
I'll be right with you. I'll be right with you.
I now entertain a motion to recess the board meeting. Could I get a motion to recess the board meeting?
So moved. Second.
Okay, the recess. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine. Yes. Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, so we are recessed.
Okay.
1 second, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the June 13, 2018 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, for the Finance Committee, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Ms. Irvine.
Here.
Mr. Youngblood.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Ms. Alvarez.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The committee has a quorum with 6 members present.
Our first order of business today is the approval of the committee minutes of May 9, 2018. May I have a motion to approve as
So moved.
Second.
will the Secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine. Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning.
More.
I'm Jeremy
Morning.
Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. And I'll be reporting on the April results. For farebox and pass totals, on aggregate, we see those slightly up on a positive variance to budget. Farebox numbers, again, are cash riders. We see a slight drop there, but again, more than offset by the fact that we continue to pick up 7-day and 30-day pass holders. So again, positive 200,000 to budget for the month of April. The reduced fare subsidy, this is again the money that we receive from the state, has been cut by half as it has since 2015. So we're down 1.2 million for the month of April. For non-farebox totals, we see a slight negative variance to budget. There's actually, if it was just looking at advertising and concessions, we would have a slight positive variance, but because of some accounting treatment for non-capital revenues, we see a slight variance here for the month of April. Overall, we're down about 1.2 million for the month of April on a variance to budget basis. Again, not to highlight the obvious, but the 1.2 also directly correlates with the reduced fare reimbursement that we have not received for those free and reduced fare rides that we provide. Average fare is, flat to budget, and, free rides are on par with what we saw in April of 2017. We continue to make a vigilant effort to pursue scofflaws, but again, from time to time, you see that essentially flat. Overall, for the year, we continue to see a positive variance there. With regard to the recovery ratio, we continue to track on course with regard to the required amount for the RTA, 54.75. So we again are on track to meet or exceed that number. On a year-to-date revenue basis, we see similar trajectory on each of the lines on the year-to-date basis that we saw on the monthly basis. So again, fare box totals down slightly, but more than offset by passes. We see an aggregate number there of a positive 1.7 on a year-to-date basis. Unfortunately, the reduced fare reimbursement is down almost $5 million on a year-to-date basis, and non-fare box totals down slightly under $1 million. So total revenue down about $3.7 million on a variance to budget year-to-date basis. Average fare is slightly up, and again, free rides are about 600,000 less than what we saw on the year-to-date through April of last year. On expenses, we continue to make great headway on offsetting those drags that we see from the reduced fare reimbursement by continuing to tighten our belt. With regard to expenses for the month of April, with regard to labor, we see this unfavorable due to the ATU contract coming online. Again, this is a variance to budget basis. As we've talked about before, we did not include that into the budget, so we're showing an unfavorable number here, but essentially we would be flat if it wasn't for that. Material is up, favorable, as is fuel and power. So we continue to see some progress on favorability in each of those three categories, as we do on security services. But again, the big number here is the $3.8 million positive variance that we see from other expenses, which again is primarily our contractual expenses. So this $1.4 million positive variability on expenses more than offsets the drag that we saw for April in terms of revenues. So we see a positive variance for the month of April of about $200,000. On a year-to-date basis, again, similar trajectory for each of the categories, where we see some unfavorability on labor, offset by materials, fuel and power, the security services, and then again other expenses, so that we see total operating expenses favorable to budget on a year-to-date basis of $2.2 million. So that puts us on a year-to-date basis about $1.5 million unfavorable. As you recall, in January and February, we saw some larger unfavorable variances as we did last year, and we continue to dig out from that position in March and then here and again in April. So we'll continue to see headway as we move forward throughout the year. With regard to the three commodities that we purchase, fuel, power, and natural gas, we continue to make selective purchases, particularly on the fuel side. We saw some ebbing of the pricing on fuel, so we were able to buy another 10%. Rates are relatively static right now until we see an OPEC meeting at the end of the month. About June 22nd is when OPEC will meet again. It's expected that production will increase, which was a little bit of a surprise to the market, so that's why we saw a little bit of a dip in pricing. After that meeting, we may see pricing relax a little bit more, but we'll be reporting if we're able to make selective purchases for calendar year 19 based on pricing after that OPEC meeting. Power, we're already locked in for 18 and 19, and then for natural gas, we continue to make selective purchases for 2020 and 2021 because, again, we're at really kind of historic lows. Things continue to ebb a little bit lower, so we'll be looking for picking up the balance of those years if pricing is competitive. Any questions with regard to the FAB?
Any
for
questions for Jeremy?
Chairman, one of the ways I would say over the past few years that we've been able to manage, decrease in the fare box, and even with the state subsidy that we haven't been getting, is that we've been managing expenses. And one of the things that have helped us, of course, is being able to hedge when it comes to the fuel. We're 6 months into the year, and we're at about 80% on the fuel. At what point do you lock it in? I know we're at 100% in terms of power. You're at 70% in terms of natural gas. But at what point in the year do you kind of just lock it in? I mean, you're right, they're going to be more production, but my concern is, again, with 80%, it still leaves us a little bit vulnerable to the markets up and down versus you're 6 months in, why wouldn't we just lock in for the rest of the year?
So great question. Traditionally, we've only locked in about 80%. That leaves a little bit of variance, as you're indicating, but that's due to fuel efficiency of vehicles, routes, things like that. That we always leave a little bit of flexibility, just so that if we do catch some potential benefit from some of the more fuel efficient vehicles that continue to roll out in the system, that we don't overbuy. So we'll continue to look at that. We have last year went up to 85%, just because we wanted to lock in a little bit more. And as we got closer to the end of the year, market rates were very favorable. We realized that we would be closer to that number, so we went ahead and locked in a little bit more. We'll be doing the same thing this year. So we'll be looking at our overall usage, and our actual usage, and seeing how that projects out through the end of the year, and whether or not we should go ahead and start locking in a little bit more than that 80% target number that we've had in place for a number of years.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Have we seen a decrease over the years if we've brought on more new buses? Have we seen a decline in terms of usage of fuel?
Yeah, so as it'll be discussed later, there's new technologies like electric buses and things like that that obviously have a great benefit with regard to our fuel usage.
Hey, Jeremy, for the non-fare box revenues, it seems like this is the second consecutive month where it's decreasing. Is that from a timing standpoint, or are we going to anticipate that being increased in the coming months ahead?
Yeah, so we do anticipate that the second quarter will be a good advertising quarter for us. The first quarter traditionally is a little bit of a lagging quarter. So as we continue into the second quarter, we continue to expect advertising revenues in particular will continue to tick up. A lot of this is really just due to the timing of the receipt of non-capital grants and how the accounting treatment works within that category. So, again, for advertising dollars in particular, we did see a slight positive variance for the month of April, but like I said, we will continue to see positive tailwinds for the second quarter and then beyond with regard to advertising on the system.
I guess I wanted to follow up with regards to the chairman's question. Have we historically seen at the end of the year that they go up or they go down with regards to the fuel, that the pricing goes up or down, or it just varies all the time?
It varies. Typically you see a little bit of a spike in the, going into the summer just because of usage in the U.S.
Right.
But geopolitical forces actually impact, the oil prices, more severely, in kind of in dramatic fashion in short-term periods. So it's, typically in the summertime, though, if you look at longer-term trends, is when you see more of a spike in oil prices. As I said, because of OPEC being a little bit more bullish on production than expected, that may be a little different this year than what you see in typical years, though.
And are we taking a look at, and I know we're going to talk about electrical buses and things like that, long-term, what that impact is going to end up? I mean, are we taking a look at that financially as well?
We are. I think that one of the one of the things that we're really trying to make a decision on is sort of what the future strategy will be around zero-emission vehicles like electric buses. And I've asked staff to really look at a broader, holistic view of that issue relative to our entire fleet and determine what will make the best sense. It's a fairly complicated conversation, both because of the infrastructure that's involved and the normal reality of how you would transition from one type of fleet to another. But I think it's something that we certainly want to explore. I know that when you get the presentation on the electric bus later today, you'll start to see sort of the technology and the infrastructure we're starting to put in place to address that. And we certainly have seen tremendous growth in the improvement of that technology from where it started when we bought our first 2 buses many years ago. So it is definitely something that's on my radar, something that I do want us to get a better sense about, and at some point I would plan to come back to the board with the overall strategy around how this should fit into our fleet and what we should be doing going forward in that regard.
And how it'll impact what we're budgeting for.
Yes,
right?
all of that is a part of the analysis. Financially, sort of what the operating costs are. You'll hear some of that in what we'll talk about in a few minutes with regards to what we've seen from the 2 buses that we have. Obviously, this next order of buses will certainly grow on that. But we're also getting the benefit of other transit systems that are starting to get more experience with their fleets. And so as an industry, we're starting to get a better handle on what the real savings are versus the cost that may be associated with this vehicle as opposed to another vehicle. So all that is what I want to feed into an analysis that would give us the best understanding of what options we should pursue going forward.
Great, thank you.
In passes, which is something that you're really increasing, is there anything special that we're doing, to try to increase the number of passes?
So we continue to make, the pass benefits known out there in the system. So, again, we've seen that being a benefit of bringing people on to the 7-day and 30-day, or to the 7-day passes in particular. With regard to the 30-day, we continue to push the benefits of transit benefit program at large, and for both individuals and for businesses. So, again, I think you start seeing some of that materializing in the fact that we continue to see several thousand, many thousand additional passes in both of those categories. So again, it's been a good benefit to us as a CTA entity, but also to our riders that once they have that pass in hand, the cost of each additional ride is already baked in. So again, a great benefit to them as well, have the freedom to ride as many times as they need to during that period.
Is there any way, that we can do something special, or a program, to promote passes? Or I don't know which way.
Yeah, so we, at the TVMs, at the Venture Machines, again, they're highlighted there. The marketing team continues to promote the benefit of passes on the system. So again, and then again, as we continue to roll out the larger transit benefit program, that will be not only conversations directly with the riders on the system, but also with those businesses to ensure that they understand the benefits of the program as a business entity and also to their employees.
I think I would add to Jeremy's comments that we are looking at a broader overall strategy on how we could better not just market, but also make sure that we're offering up the right products that can incentivize transit use with CTA. We're also looking, and you may recall that with our Venture app, we're looking to expand the use of that app to capture Divvy and other entities as well. So we're looking to find ways that we can create products that may start to better reflect the reality of what our customers and the general public are identifying as their transportation options, and how to better seamlessly integrate that into the decision-making process to hopefully generate benefits for us.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Are you seeing any trends in terms of the expiring Venture cards and being replaced? Or are they
So-
just going one for one for the most part?
Yeah, so, we continue to make great progress on the rollout of Venture Card 2.0. We went through the first big wave, earlier this year. We'll start the second big wave here in the next couple of months. But again, as every month we have a new cohort that's expiring, again, we have a very streamlined and ironed out process with our cubic partners and other vendors that are involved. So, we see that, people are getting their cards. We've accelerated it so that we're getting cards out to people even earlier than we had, which was still relatively early, but wanting to make sure that people get the cards, understand that they need to activate the cards, and we're seeing that they're activating them earlier and earlier in the process so that, you don't see a large cohort at the end of the month activating their cards. So again, I think that we've been very successful in rolling out Venture Card 2.0, knock on wood, so you don't want to count your chicken before they're fully hatched here, because we still have obviously a number of months and years as people kind of cycle through the window.
Well, I can report my daughter's CPS Venture Card got expired, and she got a replacement card from school and was able to use it that day, and it went really smoothly. So
That's great to hear.
glad to hear that the rest of it's going well too.
If I could just amplify a little bit, I think Jeremy may be a little bit modest here. Jeremy and his team have been spending a tremendous amount of time making sure that this transition goes as smoothly as possible, given the reality of the millions of cards that we're talking about having to transfer. And I would agree with Jeremy's assessment, both in terms of what we've seen in terms of the activity around the cards, but also I think just importantly what we've gotten in terms of feedback both in social media and our customer service center about the smoothness by which these transitions have occurred. I would also take this moment to also remind all of our board members that, interesting enough, all of our cards expired this month. And so we need to make sure that we get you a new card as well, so that you don't have any challenges going forward. And I know Jeremy and his team will make sure that all of you get your revised cards for use on CTA.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, thank you. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance amending Ordinance 017.
Excuse me,
124.
Chairman, I thought, isn't the audit today?
Yes.
That's on the budget, that's correct. I think the next step, sir, should be the report by the audit people, I believe. I apologize if it was unclear.
I don't have it here. Okay.
Jeremy?
Yes. So Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. I'll be joined by Christine Torres from Crow, as well as Maria Belita from Adelphia, who is the WMBE sub.
Good morning. I am
morning.
Christine Torres, and I am a partner with Crow, and I am here with Maria Belita, a partner with Adelphia, our DBE subcontractor on the engagement. We have completed our audit of the December 31st, 2017 financial statements. We were engaged to audit the financial statements to determine that they're reasonably stated in all material respects, as well as audit the federal grant funds to make sure they're in compliance with the guidelines set forth by the federal government. In regards to the financial statement audit, it has been completed and the auditor's opinion has been issued. The audit opinion was unmodified or clean, which means that all amounts and the notes in the financial statements were stated within material respects. As required by government auditing standards, we have also issued a report on internal controls to determine if there are any deficiencies over the controls over financial reporting. I am pleased to report that for this opinion, we did not have any findings associated with it. With that, I'm going to have Maria talk about the federal audit.
Good morning. I am Maria Belita, a partner with Adelphia, and I am representing the DBE partner in this audit. I'm happy to report that Crow was able to issue an unmodified opinion on compliance with federal programs for the year ended December 31, 2017. CTA receives a number of federal grant programs. However, based on federal guidelines, our testing was focused on two major programs for this year. The programs are the Federal Transit Cluster and the National Infrastructure Investment Grant, and due to the size of these grants, we had 97% coverage of the federal funds spent, and these are the largest programs that the CTA expends from. As part of this process, we also evaluated the internal controls over compliance with those programs. Based on this testing, we reported one finding related to the amount that was reported for program income in the quarterly reports. Program income is informational reporting and does not have any financial impact on the grant or the grant expenditures.
Any questions?
No question, but I wanted to just thank Christine. This is the first year of you guys. Everyone remember we have a new auditor now, and I want to thank Christine and Maria. It's great to meet you, and thank you. I don't know if there's anything you want to share with the board other than what you've just shared, but again, I want to just thank you for, again, this year's audit.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we just want to thank Jeremy and his entire team. The whole team was very helpful in getting us everything very professionally and quickly so that we could meet all deadlines related to the issuance of the reports. And that is not any small task at all. So we appreciate all of the time that's spent with us so that we can get to this point and issue these opinions. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
Can you extend a little bit more, okay, in the finding?
Sure. So the finding was a result of errors in the quarterly reports that were filed. It was for just one single line item that we had an error and an exception. It is a line item that covers program income, and it's an informational line item. So there is no impact on your funding or the amounts that you receive or that type of information. It's really an informational line item that the FTA requires reporting on. Because there was an error in that, we did have to report it in this report, since it is on the federal report that goes to the FTA.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Can I just add that based on this finding, we have taken steps to correct the procedural process to generate the error, and we do not anticipate having that kind of an error again going forward.
Thank you. Any other questions? If there's no further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance amending Ordinance 017-124, approving the fiscal year 2018-2022 capital improvement program. Jeremy.
Thank you, and I'll be joined by Michelle Curran, the budget director for CTA.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Curran, Vice President of Budget and Capital Finance. I'm here today to present an amendment to the 2018 to 2022 Capital Improvement Program, or CIP. In December 2017, the board approved the $2.7 billion CIP. As we do each year, we are amending the CIP to appropriate 3 additional funding sources totaling $26.8 million and to align existing federal formula funding. The first additional funding source is an increase in the 2018 FTA formula funds by $24.5 million based on the final federal appropriation. The second source is from the final settlement agreement payment of $1.4 million from Navi, which is the articulated bus manufacturer. And the third source is from an EPA grant for $400,000 to contribute towards the purchase of electric buses. The funding will be used to replace approximately 70 of the oldest buses in the fleet, invest in electric buses, purchase diesel locomotives for snow removal, and contribute towards the purchase of the 7000 series rail cars. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
We just like getting more money than we expected.
Yes, we do.
For comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago, Department of Fleet and Facility Management. Jeremy and Mike.
And I'll be joined by Mike Gwynn, the revenue director for CTA. He's also the brains and the brawn behind the Venture Card 2.0 rollout as well. So,
All right. Thank you very much, Jeremy. And your cards should be waiting for you. Your replacement cards, if you haven't gotten them yet, they're there for you. Michael Gwynn, Director of Revenue and Fair Systems. Presented for your consideration is a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago Department of Fleet and Facility Management, otherwise known as 2FM. This is the 11th year that CTA has partnered with 2FM or its predecessor, the Department of General Services, and 2FM manages promotional messaging for all city programs that fall outside the purview of DCASE, which is the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. DCASE puts on Blues Fest, Jazz Fest, a lot of the big major festivals. CTA is providing $392,952.50 in unsold advertising on buses and trains, and in exchange we'll get equal value of unsold advertising on 250 DeCo bus shelters. This promotion will allow CTA to reach out to a larger audience via the bus shelters, which includes both visitors and residents who are either driving or may not use the system otherwise. The large format of the DeCo shelters is a very visible means of communicating to not just customers, but generally Chicagoans. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, please. If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is the review of three ordinance. An ordinance authorizing a lease of retail concession space located at 127 North Dearborn Street. An ordinance authorizing a lease of retail concession space located at 1901, 1911 Northwestern Chicago, Illinois. An ordinance authorizing a sublease of ground floor space located at 567 West Lake Street, Chicago, Illinois to Wishbone, Chicago. Carol.
Thank you. Carol Morey, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. So the first two items would authorize the leasing of retail concession spaces at Washington on the Blue Line and Western on the Blue Line. Grab-A-Bite had previously leased these spaces and requested a lease termination after they realized the challenges of operating a U.S.-based business. Their other business operations are in London. The lease for Washington Blue is recommended to L&X, which is owned by Yihan Su and Win Fong Fan. They have experience in managing restaurants and are well capitalized. They will offer food and beverages, including donuts, tea, cakes, and ice cream at Washington Blue. They were the winning bid out of three proposers at an annual rent of $15,740. The lease is for 5 years with a 5-year option and includes a 3% escalation. The lease for Western Blue is recommended to the Sala Pao Shop, LLC. The business is owned by Felix Bahena and will offer ready-to-eat Thai cuisine, including steamed buns at Western Blue. Mr. Bahena's family operates a Thai restaurant in the vicinity of the Western Blue Line station. His bid for the space was $108 per square foot. It was the only bid, but it is above the JLL opinion of value. This equates to an annual rent of $10,800. The lease is for 5 years with a 5-year option and includes a 3% annual escalation. I'd be happy to take any questions on these two items.
Can you tell me, Carol, what percentage of our space has been leased up? Do you know offhand?
I'll have to get back to you with that information. Okay. We have had some lease terminations recently, and we're working very closely with finance on a strategy to up that percentage.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, we had to talk about that something. You still need to present on the building here, right?
Right. So
right. She did two of the leases and now the building lease.
So the next item would authorize a lease to Wishbone Chicago LLC, which is owned by Joel Nixon. They're relocating from their current location at 1001 West Washington. Wishbone is a well-established full-service restaurant and will operate 5 days a week for breakfast, brunch, lunch, and dinner, and have exclusive use of the outdoor dining space adjoining the restaurant. So this is for the space that was formerly occupied by Bin 36. The annual rent will be $33 per square foot, which is 10% more than the rate we would have been receiving under the former lease, and equates to an annual base rental rate of $183,117. The lease includes a 15% rent escalation every 5 years, equating to roughly a 3% annual escalation, and includes a 10-year term with 2 5-year options. Wishbone will also pay their proportionate share of building operating expenses. The proposed 9 months of rent abatement is in lieu of a tenant improvement allowance and payment of the tenant's brokerage commission, which is customary for leases of this type. The lease begins July 1st, and Wishbone hopes to be open at 567 Westlake in the fall. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment. Kudos. Wishbone has been there forever. There's one question. You said a minimum of 5 days because they're currently open 7 days a week now. So is it possible that they would operate more than just 5 days? Because again, they're currently open 7 days a week now.
Yeah, so that's a minimum. They can certainly operate 7 days a week if they'd like. You know, many restaurants in the area close 1 day a week to give their staffs a break. So they will have that option under the lease, but we did ask for a minimum of 5 days.
Got it.
Was there any other application for this one, or just one also?
We put out a general call through JLL, and this was the most attractive proposal.
Okay.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 3 items of the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with RTA and Metra for energy management software. Carol?
So this next item would authorize an IGA with RTA and Metra regarding the utilization of Energy Cap software. So back in 2013, RTA issued a competitive procurement for energy management software for use by the 3 service boards. The selected vendor was Energy Cap, which is a certified small veteran-owned business. Energy Cap was awarded a 5-year contract, which expired on May 31st, 2018. The RTA reviewed available software when the contract came up for renewal and determined that there was not another product available at the same price point that provides the same functionality as Energy Cap, and made the decision to pursue the procurement as disadvantageous to public bidding rather than as a competitive procurement. As a shared product, RTA and Metra will pay 2/3 of the annual service fee for hosting, maintenance, and technical support services. CTA will pay the other 1/3. CTA will also pay 61.5% of the annual bill capture service and tune-up fees, which allows us to audit and analyze our energy bills. Total costs for the CTA over 5 years are projected at $140,000, including contingency. RTA has committed to looking at the market when this new 5-year contract expires and putting out a competitive procurement if other similar products have entered the market. The RTA board approved the contract at their May 2018 board meeting. CTA relies on Energy Cap to process utility bills for more than 1,200 service accounts for approximately 430 individual buildings. The software holds, organizes, tracks, and creates reports for our monthly usage and billing data for electricity, natural gas, and water. The software also provides the same suite of functions for our half-hour electricity usage for our rail system. On the utility bill processing side, it enables us to verify account locations, account numbers, billing period dates, usage data, and charges, all in a single data repository, basically to allow us to verify our bills. And on the utility bill analysis side, it performs the critical function of creating longitudinal data sets from our individual bills to create one historical data set that can be analyzed for numerous purposes. It helps us to validate and promote building energy efficiency projects. For example, it enabled us to verify that the electricity usage at 901 West Division, which is our warehouse, decreased from about 67% from 2011 to 2017 as a result of a lighting retrofit. It's also allowed us to perform energy assessments of our 20 largest facilities, which will help us identify the most cost-effective and timely energy efficiency projects across the agency. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is the review of two ordinances. An ordinance authorizing a right of entry agreement with Navy Pier for access to Navy Pier bus turnaround for the installation and maintenance of an electric bus charging system. An ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago for reimbursement of costs of environmental monitoring and remediation work for the installation and maintenance of an electric bus charging system at Navy Pier. Carol.
So these items relate to the item on the purchasing agenda A7 for the purchase of electric buses and associated en route charging systems. The first item authorizes a right of entry with Navy Pier, Inc. For access to the Navy Pier bus turnaround for installation and maintenance of the electric bus charging system. So Operations has determined that the new buses will be utilized on the number 66 route, which runs from the bus turnaround at Chicago and Austin to the turnaround at Navy Pier. Charging infrastructure will be constructed each of the bus turnarounds to facilitate charging of the buses during layovers. CTA owns the bus turnaround located at Chicago and Austin, but the bus turnaround at Navy Pier is owned by the City of Chicago, then leased to the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority, which subleases the property to Navy Pier, Inc. So this right of entry with Navy Pier, Inc. will permit us to construct, operate, and maintain the needed charging infrastructure for these electric buses. The second item also relates to the installation of the charging infrastructure. The land on which the charging infrastructure will be constructed at Navy Pier is actually a Superfund site, which was contaminated with thorium-232. The City of Chicago had previously received a settlement from the prior owner of the site to deal with remediation costs. So this IGA and reimbursement agreement will permit the City of Chicago to reimburse the CTA for up to $3 million in remediation costs, which we expect to incur as part of the construction of the charging infrastructure. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
No, well, Carol, both of these are just cost neutral to us.
Yes, there's no cost to the right of entry, and the reimbursement agreement is strictly a pass-through with the city, yes.
Okay. And we think the $3 million is enough to cover the environmental remediation?
Yes, we do. That includes contingency.
Okay.
Any questions?
Just one question. So when they're at Navy Pier, are they at any risk for damage from vandalism, or are there a lot of other municipalities using them at public bus stops like that?
You're talking about the charging
The
systems?
charging stations, yeah.
I'd like to call Tom.
Or maybe I'm jumping ahead to
Did you want to defer the question?
Yeah,
to-
I'll defer the question. Yeah, sorry.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Dietrich, Acting Vice President of Vehicle Maintenance. Your question about the masts themselves, they are a concrete base and then just a steel mast that's constructed from there out in the elements.
Thank you.
I would also point out at Navy Pier, the charging station itself looks almost like a substation in terms of it's in a brick building. It's encapsulated. It's a very robust system that I'm not concerned would be subject to vandalism or anything like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item placed on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
These two items, sorry.
Second.
They're both out.
Yeah.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for policy year 2018-2019. Steve?
Good morning. Steve Wood, Deputy General Counsel. Before you is an ordinance authorizing the 2018-2019 property insurance policy. The policy runs from July to July and is renewed every year. Our insurance brokers at Mesereau and Paradigm marketed the renewal to both the domestic and international insurance markets, and the insurance syndicate led by Lloyd's of London provided the best combination of coverage and price. This policy covers all of CTA's property, including rail structures, rail stations, track bed, office buildings, bus barns, and garages, as well as rail cars and our stored buses. There is a primary layer to cover claims up to $25 million per occurrence and an excess layer of $105 million that provides the CTA with a total property coverage of $130 million per occurrence. The proposed premium for this year's policy, along with taxes and fees, is approximately $3,492,000, which is an increase of about $340,000 or 10.8% from the expiring policy. The increase is based on several factors, including an increase in the CTA's asset values of about 2%. That's primarily due to the increase in value of renovated rail stations and also the addition of the new rail station at Wilson. Further, the CTA has some claim activity in the prior year, and in addition, the market for rail insurance, especially in the excess layer, has hardened pretty significantly over the last year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
And Steve, what's our deductible?
So our deductible for most occurrences is $250,000. There is a slightly higher, dramatically higher increase deductible for incidents that involve rail car derailment or collisions, and that's $3 million. But for most incidents, it's $250,000, so relatively low for the kind of claims we're looking at.
Any other questions? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, Chairman, we're not putting this on the omnibus. It's going to be for a separate vote that we'll get to later.
This item will not be placed on the omnibus.
Correct.
Our final order of business today is the review of the purchase and sales awards. There was a mistake on the posted agenda, so there are 14 contracts, not 15. We're going to start with contract numbers A1 through A4. Any questions?
Just in terms of A1, I know this was one of the contracts we used to address an issue that came up with Local 241, and I just wanted to know, have we gotten any feedback since we've installed these services? Has there been any feedback from our workers?
Good morning. Donald Bonds, Chief Transit Officer. We have been in constant contact with both the union presidents, 241 and 308. We have gotten no negative feedback, and we've also kind of put in place to have a ongoing checks of these things that are out there. So the facility vice president has put some quality checks in place to make sure that the locations are okay.
Yeah, I know in the summer and the wintertime, because you've got them with running water and everything now.
Right.
But I know this was an issue that came up early last year, late last
Correct.
year from our local regarding our employees, and I was just curious how the feedback, but.
Yeah, it's been good. I've been in constant contact with him, just if there's problems, to let us know right away. So we're pretty, have a pretty good group that stays on top of the issues that pop up.
Okay.
Any other questions? Let's move to A5 to A7. Any questions?
Just in terms of A7, with the purchase of the buses, it brings our number of electrical buses to how many now would we have within our fleet?
22.
22 total? Okay.
So how many are we buying? How many new
We're
buses?
buying 20 in the base
We're
order?
buying 20,
Yes,
and we already hit 5, right?
2.
2, I'm sorry.
Yes.
2. And how much are we gonna save, okay, with the operational, okay, with
Tom Dietrich, Acting Vice President of Vehicle Maintenance. Average savings is approximately $25,000 per vehicle between fuel and maintenance cost.
25 by 20?
And that, I was gonna say too, just in terms of the savings, do we know what the capital outlay will be in terms of retrofitting our barns to be able to recharge the buses?
This particular program actually shows or has a installation of a quick charging system and 2 depot chargers. The depot chargers would be at 2 locations, 74th and 77th Garage, and the quick charge is actually out of Chicago Avenue. I'm sorry.
The 5 charging stations?
5 charging stations, the cost of those actually is $14 million.
We will be leasing the buses, right?
Yes.
We're buying.
No, we're buying them.
We're buying them.
We're buying the buses.
Yeah, I apologize, I misunderstood
No problem.
what you had asked.
And the warranty on the equipment, that's a lot of money for those 5 charging stations, 14 million? The warranty,
We can certainly get that information for you. I'm sure there is a warranty, but we'll find out exactly what it is, and we will get that information for you.
yeah, 14 million is as much as the buses are costing.
It's just under the buses, right.
Yeah,
But
And
we'll get all
recognize-
that information. They're buying the equipment and doing the installation.
Right, and recognize the 14 million is both for the construction of the, like the station I was mentioning at Navy Pier, as well as the equipment itself. So this is really a construction project and a vehicle acquisition project all in the same contract.
How long do we anticipate using those charging stations? Is there a length of time? I'm just thinking in terms of the fact that, in essence, it's new technology, if you will, and there'll probably be changes and things that make it more efficient down the road. So have we looked at the longevity of our use of that?
Can you repeat the question again?
So have we looked at the longevity of the use of the charging stations? And I'm just thinking in terms of 4 years, 3 years, tomorrow, whatever. There might be new ways of charging and being more efficient with it. And so I'm just curious about what we're looking at as far as the longevity of those charging stations. And are there upgrades that can be made to those if they come and, kind of looking long-term picture of that?
I think the charging stations themselves are going to be around a while. These that we're getting now have been used for a while. They're used in various states. And I believe Canada also has the same type of quick charging system.
Mhm.
And also our depot chargers that we currently have for our 2 e-buses have been around since we had the buses in 2014.
Mhm.
We have not had to make any type of modifications to that unit. And also, that charging station will work with the buses that we're that we're buying now. So we don't have to make any modifications to our system right now as far as charging systems.
So we're anticipating we're going to keep these 5 years, 10 years? What are we?
I think it's safe to say we'll keep them, they'll be on par with other infrastructure investments that we make in our system,
Uh-huh.
which means that we're talking 10, 20, longer than that. Keep in mind that the bus itself has a useful life of about 12 years.
Mhm.
So I know that we'll keep them for at least 12 years, although I would imagine the way in which the current technology allows for the distribution of the electricity into the bus is not likely to significantly change, primarily because all transit agencies around the country are investing in the same infrastructure. So The expectation, from my perspective, would be that the advances will occur much more on the bus side of the conversation than on the charging side.
Got it. That's more to my question. Okay, great, thank you.
One
Any
question I
other
forgot to
questions?
ask in the briefing yesterday is, what do these buses sound like when they're operating? Because there's an issue with, you may know, people blind or have low vision with electric vehicles, that they can be so quiet that they can't even hear them, and it makes navigation more difficult and sometimes hazardous. So what do these buses actually sound like when they're on the road?
Well, that's one of the things we will have to address with the vendor, because they are very quiet. You wouldn't even know they're running just because they're electric. So that's something that we can discuss with them, what features will be a part of that. I can't answer that question right now, but I can get you a response back on what can be done to the buses.
Yeah, and I would say maybe find out what they've done to address that issue in other municipalities that are using these buses, because, and just thinking about it now, I mean, not just people who are blind or have low vision, but a lot of people aren't totally paying attention, and the sound of that bus does make people notice. I think about people standing close to the curb at a bus stop or even at a corner, and they may not be thinking about it, and that sound can alert them to step back. So,
Correct.
yeah, I'd definitely like to know more
Okay,
about that.
I will do a follow-up on that for you.
Thank you.
And I think you're raising a very legitimate point, so let us get you some more information, and we'll get that to the rest of the board as well in terms of how that would be addressed. I would imagine that this is not a unique issue to us, and so I would expect that there is some steps that the manufacturer's taken to address this, but we'll get the details on what exactly that is.
I know that in Denver, that what they do is they make sound for it. They actually project a noise, and as it goes quicker, they make it go louder, as though it was a regularly fueled vehicle.
Thank you, that's good to hear.
The savings of 25,000 per vehicle, that's for the life of the vehicle? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Thanks.
Per year. Yes, I'm sorry, per year over the life of the vehicle.
Okay. Per year over the life of the vehicle, got it.
Any other questions? Let's move to contract number B1. Any questions? Let's move to contract number C1 through C2. Any questions? Move contract G1 through G3. Contract number H1 will need a separate vote.
Sorry, Chairman, this was part of the mix-up on the recusal. H1 is fine, we can talk about it, and that'll go into the omnibus. It was an ordinance. There's a confusion on what was going to be a recusal on, but H1 is fine, we can ask questions, and we can put into the omnibus.
Okay, let's.
Apologize.
Good. Any questions? I will now entertain a motion to recommend board approval for committee agenda item numbers 1 to 13.
Right, so I think what we need is and again, I'm sorry, it got confusing. So we need leave to place all 14 contracts on the omnibus for approval. That's what we need right now.
Okay, since there is no further,
So we need to get that leave, though. So move and second, so the contracts are all in the omnibus.
okay.
So then we can just move to sort of wrap it all up. Okay. And that should be on that last page there, Chairman.
Now we have
We need, what we need now is a
I
motion
recommend,
to,
okay, a motion to approve the agenda.
we need, right now, again, we need a motion to approve the omnibus, which is everything that's been discussed today, except the property insurance ordinance, which we did not have leave to put into the omnibus. So we need a motion to recommend approval of the omnibus, which is everything except that property insurance ordinance, because everything else has been put into it.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. And that's what we need to take a vote on.
And finally, may I have a motion?
Let's take a vote on the omnibus as stated.
Let's take a vote,
And
okay.
we moved it and we've seconded it. So Reverend Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Irvine. Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez Rosales.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion to approve, to recommend approval of the omnibus to the board passes with 7 yes votes. Then we need a separate motion to
We need a
recommend
separate motion for,
Item 13.
to agenda item 13, the property insurance ordinance. We need a motion to approve in a second.
Second.
And second. And now I'll take the roll call vote. Ms. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine. Mr. Youngblood. Yes.
Thank you, Greg. I'm recusing myself from a vote on the property insurance matter. As an employee of HDI, one of the entities participating in the CTA's 2018-2019 property insurance program, I was not involved in working on this matter on behalf of HDI. I recuse myself for HDI from any property involvement with the policy moving forward. There is no direct financial benefit to me from this business, as I am an employee of HDI receiving a salary. Not an owner of the business, I will recuse myself from voting on approval of this policy and any other matters related to HDI that may come before the board.
Thank you. So that's a recusal from Mr. Youngblood. Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez Rosales.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
yes.
That motion to recommend board approval of committee agenda item number 13 is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 recusal.
Finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
That's right.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Terry, I need a few minutes.
All right. she had taken, she has some health issues. She had two of her grandchildren she just has to take care of. And all of a sudden, it just became,
We're right there.
All right, good afternoon again. I will now entertain a motion to reconvene the June 2018 regular board meeting. Could I get a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
And second, and to reconvene the board meeting. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Irvine. Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The regular board meeting for June is reconvened.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we do have one today, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Singe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Ms. Singe, would you please step up to the front? Sit down, please. There's a speaker, should be a speaker right there. Please state your name, and we request all of our public comment speakers to try to limit their talk to 3 minutes. Ms. Singe, go right ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Respected board members, this is Baruna Singh, and I'm partner from a DB firm, Chicago Advisors. And I'm here to put my comment regarding the just recommended for approval one of the contracts, G3B14OP03174. I have been following up on this contract for the last 6 months with CTA, and basically my concern regarding this contract is that this was being awarded to vendor CAI back in 2014 without having this put in the public bid. So based upon all the, my resources I've exhausted, going through FOIA process and, reaching out to the CTA management and getting all the information that I gathered so far is that this contract was being awarded to them using the Aecon consulting team to piggyback on the City of Chicago contract that was 26835. However, this document got from the FOIA process provide the recommendation that CTA can use other existing contracts to avoid the procurement process. However, in this recommendation, it is not clearly mentioned to go for that specific contract. That contract was awarded for initially approximately $15 million, which was a huge leap, and at that time, it points to the collusion from the existing CIO under the leadership of Forrest Claypool Hemasundaram. So that was our concern, and that I have put forward with the CTA management in all my communications. Now, my concern is that I agree that CTA can use, based upon this recommendation, all the existing contracts, but there are some existing contracts, for example, and again, I will quote, all the information I'm displaying right now has been either a public information or procured from the FOIA process. So first contract I would like to put into the CT, in front of respected board members, is the IT managed services contract that CPS is currently using for Hitachi Consulting. The pricing used for that is at least 35 to 40% less than the current vendor. The another contract is the IBM contract that Cook County is using. They all are the IT managed services contracts. And also recently, last year, Metra has changed their managed services provider from Oracle Consulting Services to Remedy Street just to reduce their cost. So based upon this recommendation, I will just request CTA, like it is right now being recommended for approval, to consider these facts and put hold on this contracts. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Karen, you want to speak to this?
I have actually been communicating with Ms. Singh for several months, and she has continued to respond. Very recently, she raised these other two contracts. My understanding is the CPS contract is expiring next month. They're going out for bid, so that doesn't really work for us. In addition, the models in both contracts include offshore resources. CTA's contract is an onshore technology contract, and for system security reasons, there's a rationale for that. Offshore, as you might imagine, is quite a bit cheaper, and I think those are some of the prices that she thinks we could take advantage of, but that's not really the model that we follow. And I would also point out the CPS contract does not currently have a piggyback provision.
Can you just continue to keep the board informed? And again, thank you for taking your time to come and bring this issue before us. We appreciate it. Karen, again, would just continue to keep us informed.
Yeah, with due respect, I will also request, I did receive this documentation as an account report, but I did not receive any documentation that's stating that CTA has done evaluation on the other existing contracts and have done the due diligence to go for this contract to piggy bank versus the other existing contract. That's what exactly I was looking at.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next order of business today is the approval of the board minutes of May 9th, 2018, regular board meeting. The minutes were previously distributed. Any comments? Hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 9th, 2018.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Irvine?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
The minutes are approved with 6 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. We'll now take up executive session matter. It is my understanding that there will be no executive session this afternoon.
No executive session today,
All right, thanks, Karen. I would now like to address board item number 6A, approving a resolution changing the date of the August 2018 regular board meeting. Since the resolution was previously distributed, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And second, it moves it back a week to August 15th. Reverend Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Irvine?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Director Irvine.
Thank you, Chairman Peterson. The Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery met earlier this morning. The committee approved the committee minutes on May 9th, 2018. The committee also reviewed the following ordinance. An ordinance regarding bus route number 205 Chicago Golf, which is being replaced by PACE bus routes number 208 Golf Road and number 213 Green Bay Road. The committee placed this item on the omnibus, and the committee recommended board approval of the ordinance. That concludes my report, Chairman Peterson.
Thank you, Director Irvine. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning. The committee approved the committee minutes on May 9, 2018. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee heard a presentation on the fiscal year 2017 annual audit. The committee reviewed the following items: an ordinance amending Ordinance 017-124, approving the fiscal year 2018-2022 capital improvement program. An ordinance authorizing a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago Department of Fleet and Facility Management. An ordinance authorizing a lease of retail concession space located at 127 North Dearborn Street, Chicago, Illinois, Blue Line. An ordinance authorizing a lease of retail concession space located at 1901-1911 Northwestern, Chicago, Illinois. An ordinance authorizing sublease of ground floor space located at 567 West Lake Street, Chicago, Illinois, to Wishbone, Chicago, LLC. An ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with RTA and Metra for energy management software. An ordinance authorizing a right of entry agreement with Navy Pier for access to the Navy Pier bus turnaround for the installation and maintenance of an electric bus charging system. An ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago for reimbursement of costs of environmental monitoring and remediation work for the installation and maintenance of an electric bus charging system at Navy Pier. An ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for policy year 2018-2019. The committee also reviewed 14 purchases and sales award contracts. The committee placed all of these items on the omnibus except for ordinance, except for the property insurance ordinance. This ordinance will require a separate board vote. The committee recommends approval of the omnibus and approval of the property insurance ordinance. That concludes my report, Chairman Peters.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Irvine and Silva?
So moved.
Second.
Reverend Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Irvine,
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood. This is the omnibus.
Yes.
Mr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez,
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion to approve the omnibus passes with 6 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. I will now entertain a motion to approve board item number I, the access property insurance coverage for policy year, should this be 2018? Policy year 2018?
Is that what it,
Number I.
no, it's
2018,
2018, 2019.
2018, 2019. Okay.
So moved.
Got it. For the property insurance ordinance, Reverend Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Irvine, Mr. Youngblood,
I recuse myself.
Mr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez,
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 recusal.
Thanks. The next order of business is a construction report. Carol?
Good afternoon. So we currently have 5 projects in active construction. The first 2, the East Lake Milwaukee, Illinois substation upgrade and the Ravenswood Loop signals upgrade project, are both power and way projects. Looking at the East Lake Milwaukee, Illinois substation upgrade, as you know, these are 3 existing substations that will be upgraded to increase capacity and replace obsolete equipment. The current phase of the project is focused on completing building improvements such as abatement, tuck pointing, structural repairs, roof replacement, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing upgrades. And we're also engaged in factory acceptance testing for the new AC/DC conversion equipment. The project is on time and on budget. And we've got a couple pictures. So this is at Illinois substation, which is kind of River North. Again, you see the steel, new light fixtures, a fire alarm system, and paint on the ceiling. And here at Milwaukee substation, which serves the O'Hare branch of the Blue Line, you see some of the new DC breaker equipment. So the next Power and Way project is the Ravenswood Loop signal upgrade project. So this is really the
Carol,
last.
before you move on, just a question. In terms of the DC breakers, what's the life expectancy once we put those in?
So I would say about 30 to 35 years.
Okay.
We generally keep them for longer, though.
Okay.
So on the Ravenswood Loop signal upgrade project, it's the last phase of a comprehensive rehabilitation of the track, structure, and signal systems between Armitage and the Merchandise Mart. So this is one of the oldest areas of our system. The benefits of this project will maximize the number of trains allowed in the corridor and increase reliability, resulting in fewer delays. The project was scheduled for completion by April 2nd of this year, but has been delayed due to contractor performance. We expect the project to be completed by the end of 2018. So again, cable installation, and this is electrical equipment for one of the new relay houses. So the final 3 projects are all station projects. The first is the 95th Terminal Improvement Program. We're currently operating out of the South Terminal, and the North Terminal is under demolition. Work continues on design and fabrication for the structural steel, for the expanded pedestrian bridges and the terminal facility on the north side. The project is tight to both schedule and budget, and we continue to manage the contractor very closely. And we have a couple pictures. So this shows the platform canopy demolition. This is on, again, the north terminal. And this shows where the buses formerly berthed on the north terminal. That's under demolition, and the new facility will look very similar to the one on the south side. So the next project is the Quincy Loop Station upgrade. It's an accessibility project which provides for the installation of 2 new elevators with connection bridges to the station houses. Also has upgraded electrical service, painting, and new flooring. The project was originally scheduled to be completed in February of 2018, but has been delayed due to contractor performance issues. We've been working closely with the contractor and expect the project to be completed in the third quarter of 2018. So we see a lot of progress here. The new elevator build out. This is actually past that. We've got new elevator metal panel installation. And then here's the new exit stair to meet updated fire exiting requirements. And the last project is the Illinois Medical District Rehabilitation Project. So this project is to improve the accessibility of the station and also upgrade the appearance and functionality. It's expected to complete in the third quarter of 2018. Again, a couple pictures. So this is the new Ogden Station House, which is being extended to accommodate the installation of the elevator. And then you can see the new stairs coming out of the Ogden Station House. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So Carol, for me, going back to the Ravenwood project, you said it was due to be complete in April. That timeline's been pushed out to the end of 2018?
Yes.
Who's working on that project? Is that an in-house project? I noticed as you went through all the other projects, I've got the contractor's name. Is that an in-house project?
No, it's not an in-house project. Ragnar Benson is the construction contractor.
Who is that?
Ragnar Benson.
Okay.
They're also the contractor on the Quincy Loop upgrade as well.
Okay. And what was the issue with, why is it being delayed almost 7 months?
I would say that it's project management. We worked really closely with them. We've worked to help them bring the project in. Signal projects in particular, this was a design build. They're pretty complex. And so you really want to make sure you take the appropriate time in design and construction to make sure you get a quality product. We're convinced in both cases that the contractor's now over the hump and that we'll be delivering by the revised deadlines.
Okay. And you're absolutely right. I was looking on the wrong page. They are noted here. Okay. Thank you.
With the DBE, wasn't one of them 18%? I know we always try to get 30. I thought I saw 18% on.
Well, this one has 10%.
That one had 10, right?
Yeah.
And there was one at 18. What's the?
On the Ravenswood loop signal upgrade, again, like Carol said, it's a signal project, which is very complex and has limited availability in terms of the design DBEs and DBEs that can perform on the contract. But the contractor has committed to actually exceeding the goal. The goal was set at 10%. They committed to 10.89, but their awards exceed that commitment. So once the project is complete, I anticipate them exceeding that goal of 10%.
And I would just add to JP's comments. So in both of those projects, if we look at a substation upgrade or a signal upgrade, a lot of the cost in that project is in the equipment that's installed. And so as JP noted, there are more limited DBE opportunities in that equipment procurement. But in terms of the construction, we try to maximize DBE participation.
Are they meeting that with direct participation or some indirect?
Yes, DBE only allows for direct participation.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's all direct.
Correct.
Any other questions for Carol? Thank you. Greg, is there any Is there any new business to come before the board?
No, I think we've done enough today, so so no, there is nothing else new.
All right, with no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.